Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for December 14th, 2021, our last live webcast of the year. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is a webcast and podcast where we dig deep into the clutter that stands between people and the lives they want to be living. We aim to make sense of where so much stuff comes from in the first place, and we offer strategies to slow down the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we choose to keep. We rely heavily on the questions and topic suggestions we get from you, our viewers and listeners.
Yes, we do. If you're joining us in Zoom for the first time, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let us know if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question yourself via audio or video. We are also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start this week, as usual, by talking about last week's tittle, which was called In No Time Flat. The assignment was to evaluate and manage the clutter on one flat surface in your home. We'd like to hear from our participants in Zoom and Facebook who cleared off a side table, a coffee table, the mantle, or a problem section of kitchen counter this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer Hot Mess Mom TV reports, my kitchen island, always my gauge of how my day will go, and it only takes putting a couple items on it, just for now, in quotation marks, that turns into the whole thing being covered with randomness. Working on it now.
Any high traffic zone in the house is going to be a constant maintenance task. If you have a habit of dropping stuff on the island, then you'll also need to develop a habit of clearing the island. Noticing where things gather is the starting point for adding a habit of closing the loop, putting things away, figuring out a new home to put things away. Wherever things back up, it's likely something needs an organizing system. Where do things like this go? And do I need to create a place for it? Does this item represent a task on my to-do list? How can I keep track of that item and not leave it here on the island? These are all conversations to have with yourself as you clear up. Parking it here just for now usually means you don't have a ready answer to these questions, and it'll require more time than you want to give it in the moment. But to ultimately solve the problem, you'll need to stop and analyze it and work out a solution. And it sounds like Hot Miss Mom TV, that name cracks me up, is doing exactly that right now. So good for you. And we hope that you get your island cleared.
Diane reports, I had to clear off a wrapping station this past weekend and cleared some things for my sister's visit. Connie said I cleared lots of surfaces and ended up with a huge pile of papers on one surface. Ugh.
That's okay. You at least consolidated the project, right? Instead of having it be everywhere, it's all in one place. And then you're ready for the next step, which is to go through the paper and start sorting it and doing your thing. But at least you corralled it all in one, you definitely sorted like with like, right? And made it all appear together.
M says, I couldn't understand the dread I experienced as I looked around the house to choose a surface for the tittle. I reluctantly chose the one that would be the easiest. That's absolutely fair.
Perfect place to start.
Not seeing trash, I decided to remove everything that I don't use every day. In doing so, I discovered that the rest of the stuff represented unactivated plans and dreams that had to be abandoned. No wonder the prospect of decluttering depresses me.
Yeah.
This would have been a great teaser if I could save it till the end for our January 4th episode, because part of what we're going to be talking about is understanding the problem, defining the problem. And you've done that critical step of recognizing why some of these things are clutter for you. And so we'll be talking a lot more about that,
and why it makes it hard for you to get started. And
yeah.
And this is also the side effect of not doing any organizing or decluttering over time but leaving it for a long time and then having to go back and sort of process everything that you've ignored for a decade, and having all the emotional release problems that go with all letting go of all those things. And so I get trying to face a decade's worth of I was going to do that and now I'm not, and experiencing that loss and letting go of that plan. But I think if you think of it as it's the perfect process for clearing the decks and starting fresh in a new year. If you do some of it now and you continue to do it in January, you're really clearing out a space that is full of some old life, and you can clear it out and make space for a new life. So while it is sad to let go of the things that aren't to be, you can remind yourself that you're just clearing the decks and creating fresh, new, empty space to put in new plans and have new dreams and new ideas that are more current for you and more in line with what's going on in your life right now. So if you have trouble, stop and think, I know this is making me sad, and I'm making space for something new. I'm making space for the new set of plans and the new great ideas I'm going to have coming towards me now. And and letting go of lost dreams is hard. I totally get it. I'm sure everybody here understands that reflection of, oh, this is a place where I didn't complete, or I failed, or something went awry, or the moment passed and I didn't get to do it. And it's hard to see those unfinished loops fall away. But we will support you on your journey, and hopefully you will get some relief on the back end after you've sorted through some of this stuff. You'll get some relief from the clear surface being there.
Jane says, this tittle made me much more conscious of putting things away when I finished using them. Multiple times I started to put things down and told myself to walk it where it belongs, and did.
Yay, that's exciting.
That was in our subliminal messaging for last week's tittle.
Right. We are sending you that message, right? But that's a perfect understanding of, you create the clutter by being unconscious about what you're doing, and you recognize that you were just going to put it down, and instead stopped and rerouted and went and put it away. And then you end up doing your maintenance as you do your project, which is great. And sometimes that doesn't work, and sometimes you can't stop and put it all away one thing at a time. But if you can, you're just saving yourself one more step later on. And so good for you to figure that out and put it into practice.
And Kara said, for the tittle, I got after the counter in my closet in the office and cleared it off, went through paper. The paper afflicted, LOL.
The paper afflicted, yeah. That's great. And going through that paper, it always seems like it's going to be super, super awful, but it's never as bad as you think once you get started. It just has the look, it just looks like a bunch of misery. So if you can just do a little bit of it and get started, sometimes you can make big headway.
Well,
good for you.
Part of the problem with paper is when it turns into piles, you might still recognize some of the strata from looking at it from a distance, but mostly you can only see whatever's sitting right on top of the pile. And then everything else below that has entered the realm of mystery. and the mysterious is much scarier than the stuff that's known. Right there present for you. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Joyce reports on an ongoing horizontal surface issue. She says, still working on switching stuff from my cheap desk to my mom's beautiful antique desk. It's a hot mess, but I found my clear plastic drawers from my old desk can be used as organizers in the bottom drawer of my new desk.
Excellent. Yeah, you have to redo the systems when you have a new surface and a new desk. So it's definitely something that requires motion for you to system design and put things away and make it happen so that it exactly fits your new desk drawers, your new desk surface. Maybe you put the desk in a new place, so you're not facing in the same way, or you're not near the file cabinets in the same way. And so you have to redesign that layout. But it's the time to stop and think about all the ways that the old desk didn't work. And you can recognize, gee, I don't like having to reach that far to get to that file cabinet, or I would rather have the trash can closer. This is the time to reevaluate the layout and where everything goes, and don't just transfer it from exactly A to exactly to the equivalent place in B. Take the moment, the pause in the transfer to say, does how that was laid out or organized make sense? And could it be improved in some way if I did it differently? And see if you can help yourself work better there.
Well, and especially if you've been using the old desk for a long time, your work patterns and habits probably changed. As if parts of your life have become more paperless than they were before, you might be able to tuck the stapler away somewhere. The paper clips can be hidden out of sight. You may not need nearly as much stuff on the surface of the desk as you once did.
Yeah.
Go
Absolutely.
for a cleaner look there.
Well, and it's the only time that having to transfer it off from one to the other is just like moving, right? You're emptying the space completely and rebuilding a space. And so you might as well take the time to redesign.
Anita said, I started with one shelf in my kitchen cabinet and I decided I liked the neatness, so I went looking for horizontal surfaces. Focusing on the word horizontal kept me focused, looking for spots in my home where a few minutes made a big difference. Thank you.
You're welcome. What a great idea. Sometimes you just need a category, right? So good for you.
And Lee said, cleared my art cart and table, still need to find homes for a few things and having trouble relocating.
Okay. Take a pause.
Yes.
Ask yourself one at a time. What is this thing? Why do I need it? When do I need it? Where can it live that makes sense to me?
Yes. And Tammy said, I cleaned shelves and found brackets in zones. So now the clutter is on shelves versus the floor. That's progress. That's definitely progress.
Absolutely. And
okay,
if you can walk, it's easier.
We're tackling two topics today, and so we better move on to those. The first of those. Sometimes the pressure of other activities and priorities means that we have to put our organizing projects on hold, or at least in slow motion, and it can be hard to keep enthusiasm and momentum when the time comes to restart. Today, Gayle is going to talk to us about strategies for keeping focus and commitment for projects that you have to put on hold.
The end of the year has so much going on. You're getting together with family and friends. There are all kinds of special events, and your to-do list grows exponentially this time of year. It's hard to keep up with the usual organizing projects in the middle of the holiday season. Sometimes we think we should cram it in before the guests come, but that just creates a lot of stress, and you don't make very good choices in that moment. Better to put them on hold for a few weeks and start back up in the new year. Stopping a project that you've been focused on can kill your momentum for sure. But if you prepare your project for restarting it later, it'll be easier to get back to it. Besides, everyone will jump on the get organized bandwagon in the new year, so you'll have lots of company. Let's talk about ways to organize your organizing so that you won't feel like you're starting from scratch when you're ready to get into motion on it again later. Here are some strategies for you to get started. The first one is take photos to document the current state of the project. It'll help you know what work you've already done, and it will give you an idea of how to set up again, because you're probably set up right now in a good working method, working area, and you have things in place where you want them. And so if you take a picture of it, it'll be easier for you to set it up that way again. Make some lists that give you a historical reference point and a focus to move forward. So you want a list of what you've already done including the donation errands that you've made and your organizing product purchases that you've already done. What kinds of things did you go buy to help you with this project? Next, you want a list of what you believe remains to be done. It's so helpful to do it now while the details are very fresh in your mind. Then you don't have to rediscover the steps later. The idea of going away and not thinking about it for a long period of time and then suddenly coming back to it and going, what was I doing? Where was I? What happened? If you've made yourself a list of this is where I've started, what I've already done, and this is another list of this is what I think needs to be done, then you can dial into the project really quickly. Lastly, you can give yourself a starting point. So what's the very next step? What's the very next step that you need to take when you get started again? This detail can help you find your way back into the project groove, as Ed says, and it will tell you, here's step one. So you don't even have to figure it out because you've already figured it out for yourself. That way you can go to your picture, set your stuff back up again. You can look over what needs to be done, and you can go to your very next step and you can launch right back into your project. If you don't already have a decluttering toolkit, the moment when you need to put your project on hold is a great time to start one because you've already got your materials out. So you can collect them up, all those materials like scissors and tape and Sharpies, Post-it, file folders, labels, label maker, all that stuff. Pull those things together into a box or a bin and label it, organizing project tools. That way you don't have to go gather them up when it's time to get back to the project. You're already ready to go. You also want to carefully box up any stuff that's needing attention that you've unboxed or that you've collected into an area that you're working on. So this is how the items that you've already sort of unpacked, undone, you've started to categorize. You can label it with a packing list or write on the outside what the category is. This is especially true if you've done paper. I don't know about you, but anytime I'm sorting paper, I'm making categories as I go. And if I don't stop and make a sticky and to stack them together, when I go back to them, I won't know what the categories are for sure. So this is your moment to keep the sorting work that you've already done, label them with the label that you know right now, even though you won't remember them later. If you label it, and then you can gather those things up and put that paper in a box and label it, you know, here's the home office purge, and I need to come back and sort this paper back out again. You won't lose the sorting work you've already done. Then the last thing to do is to make a date with yourself to make the project active again. Go write it on your calendar and plan several appointments with yourself. It'll turn the project right back on if you suddenly start seeing appointments to get back to work on your calendar. Just a note here, we're talking about stopping for the holidays and returning to it in the new year, but this process applies anytime life interferes with your organizing project. Maybe you have to make your space ready for guests suddenly, or maybe you need to make an emergency repair, like when when the freeze made everybody's pipes burst and water pour into their house. Suddenly there it was at the top of the list instead of an organizing project. Or the contractor is available to do your painting or install your carpet. Maybe you can only allocate 2 weekends a month for the project, but you don't want to live with the mess for the rest of the month. So all of these are other moments where putting your project on hold would be useful. Think of it as an act of self-care. You are recognizing that your to-do list has a bunch of holiday stuff on it, and your attention is now needed on other things. Putting your organizing projects away is being kind to your current self and also to your future self at the same time.
Let's take a moment and reply to a couple of comments before we move on to where you are segueing. Joyce said, I've taken before photos and I found them very revealing and insightful, but not as scary as I thought. It makes me responsible for my clutter blindness.
Good point. And it also serves as a reminder that you have actually done a lot of work. When you compare the before to the current state, you remember, oh yeah, it used to be completely full here and now it's not.
And Bonnie said, I started a separate bullet journal that is specific to the house. It allows me to divide out the rooms. This allows me to make those lists and note what is to be donated and to which organization, and then to check those items off the list as they go out the door. It gives me a sense of accomplishment.
That's great. And what a great way to organize, to have a list by room and to have it all be in one bullet journal is fabulous, because then when you're in organizing mode, you pick up that one journal and have all of your lists. Excellent.
And Rowan shared, writing down the process can also calm feeling overwhelmed or afraid of the project.
Yeah. And having that list of, here's what I already did, here's what I need to do, it takes advantage of everything that you have currently in your head, because you've been working on it. And so you're very clear in the moment. And then when you come back to it with dread or with, oh God, post-holiday malaise, and you don't want to get started, you are giving yourself the list of, I don't even have to figure it out. I've already written it down. So I just can follow the bouncing ball. I can follow the list items and know exactly what's going on. And I don't even have to summon a lot of energy to get back into it, which is great.
Our second topic,
which is self-care tips for the holiday season. The whole point of talking about stopping an organizing project is because you are being diverted for all the holiday merrymaking. And so in the midst of all the gift giving and family fun, the Clutter Fairy special wish for you is that you'll set aside a moment or two for yourself. Take time for a little self-care, and it will leave you in better health and spirits and more ready and able to give of yourself to the people that you love. In support of that wish, we'd like to offer a few tips for your holiday self-care. First, if you're going 100 miles an hour, stop it. You've probably done enough. And even if you haven't, it's just as important to save enough of your own energy to enjoy what's left of the season. Don't be afraid to say a polite no to obligations, invitations, or requests for your time that don't fit within the season that you've planned for yourself. If you've run out of time or you don't have the resources to do any more gift shopping, consider giving anyone left on your list the gift of your time, your attention, your kind heart, and they will be very enriched and grateful for it, I'm sure. Ask for what you want, especially if you're someone who carries a lot of responsibility for other people the rest of the year, and let other people take care of you once in a while. Savor a favorite tradition or try something entirely novel. Experiment with a new recipe, learn a song, or play around with an unfamiliar craft. It's the perfect time for experimenting.
I've mentioned before that I like to read A Christmas Carol every year. That's one of my personal Christmas traditions. And this year we decided to watch as many different versions of it as we can lay our hands on. And we've seen a 1935 or 1938 movie, black and white, and the Muppet edition.
The Muppet version is so
of the Christmas
cute.
Carol. The first one, as I understand it, there's a second one. We watched the first one.
Oh, that
with Michael Caine as Scrooge, and then we watched the 1984 George C. Scott made-for-TV one.
The big list,
which was most authentic to the book of what we've seen so far.
Right. Well, and there's a million versions of it spun out. There's one with Bill Murray.
Oh yeah, we watched that last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that spin on the tradition. Excellent.
Deborah says, listen to Gretchen Rubin reading the Christmas Carol. I'll have to look for that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Gretchen Rubin is the Secret to Happiness person. She's a productivity specialist.
And Marilyn says there's a 1950s version with Alastair Sims, the best.
Oh,
I haven't been able to find that. I'll have to keep looking. I didn't look everywhere. I've really only looked on Netflix and iTunes so far, and there are some other places I can look.
I saw one last year that was on PBS, a new version that came out, and it was really good as well. I'm
I've
sure you'll
also
find plenty.
heard good things about a version with Patrick Stewart as Scrooge, which sounds
Oh yeah.
wonderful.
I've seen that one. Yeah, he was good.
Okay, so I should let you get back to the list.
Okay. So the next thing is take time to enjoy the lights and colors and sounds of the season. Don't let chaos distract you from all the good things. Make a few timeouts happen. Turn off the TV and the computer and step away from your phone and focus only on being happy in the moment. Be open to serendipity and happy surprises. We often try to plan everything, and especially with all of the tradition-laden holiday events that we all want to do. But reality almost never works out exactly to plan. So be receptive to the changes of the plans and unexpected experiences. They might turn out to be a delightful treat for your family.
Or at least a funny story you can tell later.
Right? Or at least a good holiday tale. Create space for peace and quiet in your life and set aside time to rest and focus and pay attention to the meaning that this season holds for you. Listen to your own heart and be open to the acceptance and wisdom you'll find there. We hope you'll take time out for yourself on the race to year end. The organizing projects will be ready to start in January when all good people turn to recovery from the holidays.
I'm getting lots of advice on other
Christmas
carols. Yeah,
Christmas carols to watch. Yeah, they've made it a lot.
And we'll share a link. Deborah shared a link to Gretchen Rubin reading A Christmas Carol, and I will put that in the show notes for today's episode. And Naomi says, also sing along with Handel's Messiah every year. There are multiple great recordings on YouTube. When I was in school in Dallas, I went to one of the big churches there. I think it was the big Methodist church, had just a huge sing-along Handel's Messiah that I went to a few times. Let's go to the tittle for this week.
Okay. So the tittle is called a holding pattern. So we think that you should take our advice about making lists, and let's use this tittle as your opportunity to do it. Make some lists that give you the historical reference point and the focus to move forward. So as a reminder, a list of what you've already done, a list of what you believe remains to be done, and then lastly, what's the very next step? So go forth and shut down your organizing projects for the season and box them up and make these lists, and let's see how you do when we get back to it in the new year. We hope that you'll find this easier than throwing it all in the closet or ignoring everything that you've done already and then throwing a blanket on it. So let's see if we can't make those lists and get your project on the pause button, on hold.
Yeah.
And we'll unpause it when we get back to the new year.
Elaine piped in from Facebook about last week's tittle and said, I was needing this tittle. I went through tall bathroom open shelves. Now I can see what I have: medicine, makeup, and paper products. Took seasonal like suntan lotion and beach towels to the basement. I keep like with like, but don't need it all year round. Exactly.
No point in getting the suntan lotion out in January. Right? That's a very good point. And which reminds me, I don't know if any of you guys looked at the Instagram page, but I got a set of photographs from one of our avid watchers who posted up these two pictures of they had moved, they had downsized, and as they were unpacking, they were putting like with like, and she put an entire row of suntan lotions all the way across the cabinets in the bathroom, I think. And then she also had a bucket in a shelf in a closet in the bathroom with more. And I think I'm counting 38 bottles of suntan lotion. And it was because the kids were lifeguards, and I forget what the other thing was. Oh, the yard, they were doing yard work. And so apparently every time they needed suntan lotion, they just bought a new bottle.
They got a new one.
And it was not, and they were not sorted like with like at it in the old house. And so now they're all in a big row on top of the cabinet as a reminder that, yeah, we don't need any more suntan lotion. It's okay. It was a great photo if you go look at it. It made me laugh.
Do you have it where you could share it on your screen?
Oh, let me work on that.
Okay, you work on that. Well, I read another comment. This is from Edena. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. My apologies if I'm not. Edena on Facebook says, last week during your podcast, I got to work. Our son has recently discharged from the Air Force, and he will be returning to university and living with us for a few months. I was a professional belly dancer and instructor for 25 years, and I need to change my dance room into a space for our son. I made the decisions to let go of all but a few treasures from my dance life, and now there's space for my son. Now the challenge is where to send the dance items. I feel like it cannot go to any ordinary charity such as Goodwill. Some of the items are valuable, and there are many things I bought in my dance journeys to Egypt and Morocco. Do you have any thoughts on that specifically? I don't know, maybe finding a studio that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly these are dance related objects. And so finding a concentrated audience, any kind of a dance class, dance teacher, dance program, whether that is, I don't know how professional level it is, but other people that do the same thing are going to recognize the value of the stuff that you have. And so it'll be useful to them.
Naomi suggests there will be online groups of belly dance schools through which to donate or sell the items.
True.
That's a good idea. Yeah, poking around.
Oh, wait.
For Facebook groups or meetup groups. So
here is the little row of soldiers of suntan lotion. And then here, I'll change the page.
And there are about 24 there.
No, well, yeah.
Visible
it's a
there,
lot,
yeah.
And then here is see, there's a little bag to the right, and then there's this bucket with all these lotions in it. And I think there may be a little bit more behind as well. I just can't quite see that to verify suntan lotion.
For podcast listeners, what we're showing is about 10 cans of Coppertone spray suntan and several bottles of other types and a bunch of tubes of Neutrogena face sunscreen and so forth.
Right. But this is my favorite one. It's like the row of suntan soldiers on the top of the mirror.
Yeah.
Like how much better? It cannot get any better than that, right? Like how to remember that you have too many suntan lotions. You make them decor in the bathroom. I just love that. I love that so much. Okay, I'm stopping this share. That's my little funny.
On the subject of holiday traditions, Elaine said, my sister and I had a tradition to go to the Nutcracker Ballet. That's another popular one in Houston.
Yeah, that's a good one, right? Which is why you can't be doing organizing, because you're going to be in the Nutcracker having a good time.
Yeah.
We all struggle with feeling like, oh my gosh, it's 2 weeks before everybody comes and I must madly finish out the project. And the truth is, there isn't enough time. That ship has sailed, right? It's too late. There's way too many hours to jam it all in at the end. And so recognizing that, no, it's time to stop and not make that happen and move on to the next thing, which is having fun and making cookies and shopping and concerts and Handel and Christmas Carol and all the stuff that you do is what's going to take up your time right now. And so,
well, and we didn't really talk about the subject of what we're trying to encourage you not to do, which is don't just hide it. Don't just stuff it away.
Exactly.
In a chaotic fashion where you won't even find it again when the time comes to start. And I think, making your plan for when you're going to resume is critically important too.
Well, and you don't want to be undoing in the work that you've already done. And, whatever partial sorting and categorizing and putting like when like that you've already done, you don't want to lose that in the shutdown process. And so being thoughtful about putting it away saves most of your work so that you don't have to repeat it all again.
Several people have chimed in to say that they use sunscreen year round.
Yeah, clearly they're not using it fast enough.
And yet you still don't need 23 bottles of it.
And yet 1 bottle at a time is probably enough. Yes.
With one in reserve.
With one in reserve.
We can let you have one in reserve.
My biggest concern is with that many bottles that the product is going to turn and not be safe for their skin after some point. And so I have suggested to her that she find a way to donate some of that away so that it gets used now before the product sort of chemically devolves and stops being good to put on your skin.
Yeah,
that stuff isn't stable forever, and each chemical process, product is different, and who knows how long it's going to last. But at some point, you're going to put it on, and it's going to burn you instead of work properly. So we want to get those used before they just have to go in the trash before decontaminating. That's, I don't know what, destructing themselves.
Yes, degrading.
Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. That's
the word. Okay, I want to say a special thank you to Bonnie and Susan for becoming our newest Patreon supporters.
Thank you.
If you would like to help support our efforts with a recurring monthly donation of any size, please visit cfhou.com/Patreon, Patreon. Your contributions help us offset the costs of producing the weekly webcast and will help us fund new projects that we have in the works. Thank you for your support, Susan, Bonnie, and all of our generous underwriters.
Thank you. We appreciate it so much. It does cost us money to do this. I am not working while I'm doing it, so I cannot earn money while I'm doing this. So I really appreciate that you guys step up and support us. Thank you so much.
As I said at the top of today's show, this is our last live webcast of 2021. We will be back on January 4th, 2022 at the usual time.
Right.
And we're going to be considering the question, are some things objectively clutter, or is calling something cluttered just a personal opinion? It's hard to solve a problem that you haven't clearly defined. So in our first episode of 2022, we'll examine several definitions we can use to identify and categorize clutter, and we'll explore how our understanding of clutter impacts our approach to organizing. Join us January 4th, 2022 for a defining moment, what clutter means in your life and home.
We're going to start out the new year by talking about the definition of clutter. There you go.
M's comment was so great. I want to find that again because M said, let's see if I can find that again because it was really, really relevant. I discovered that the rest of the stuff, this is talking about stuff she was clearing off of
her counter,
a flat surface. I discovered that the rest of the stuff represented unactivated plans and dreams that had to be abandoned.
And which is a perfect definition of
that's
stuff that stopped being important and became clutter. There's a whole bunch of other ways to look at clutter as well. So we're going to explore all of that and talk about all of the ways that things go from being important in your life to being clutter instead and ready to be moved on.
Okay. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To receive notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and topic suggestions on Facebook, on YouTube, or through the contact form on our website You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
We were so happy that you joined us today. Thank you so much. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope you have a great holiday. I myself am going to go do that exact thing. I'm going to go see family. And so that's why we're not going to be live for the rest of the year. But I appreciate that you have hung with us for the year, and we will see you in 2022.
In season 3 of the Clutter Fairy Weekly.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.